there's a scandal that has really not been investigated yet. And to be perfectly fair, I think that our current Attorney General needs to come on camera, needs to go down to the legislature, needs to be interviewed under oath to discuss what happened with the Capital One settlement. The Capital One settlement, the AG's office was in a lawsuit with Capital One, and they settled it. And we had a very strange law in Minnesota at this time, which most people are calling a slush fund, where the Attorney General got to determine where the money went from a settlement.
Yeah, obviously, how does that work out? The Attorney General gets to determine where the money, Very strange. I mean, most people I talk to around the country roll their eyes. They can't believe this happened. But so at that level, the slush fund was $750,000. So they settled this lawsuit for $749,999, and they gave an enormous chunk of this money, $249,999, what should have been taxpayer dollars. They gave it to ACORN. And our Minnesota taxpayer dollars money.
To ACORN. And then ACORN endorsed and helped these candidates. This is very disturbing. So the question is, why did they do that? Where did that money go? How did ACORN use that what should have been taxpayer money? Was it used for the campaigns of these individuals? Was it accurately reported to the government as being used in the campaigns? There's all kinds of issues, investigative issues, that have never been dealt with. They tried, a number of legislators tried to get an investigation going in the legislature, and it was shut down. So this is very troubling. So we have the very individuals, and of course Mark Ritchie, our Secretary of State, is also very close to ACORN. So these are our government individual folks who are supposed to be doing these investigations. They're supposed to be watching out for election integrity. They're involved with ACORN. They're involved with funneling money to ACORN. They're involved in looking the other way when felons vote. What's going on in our state? What do we need to do to clean this up and get back to Minnesota being known as a clean state with clean and fair elections? I'd like to bring trust back to that office.
There isn't any trust right now. Let me tell you, I'm an election judge, head election judge, I might add. So when you look at the city that I live in, there's 4 precincts in it. There are 2 Republican head judges and 2 Democrat head judges. Across the board, we know that there's fraud. We know it. We talk about it, and one of the things we call for is photo ID.
Photo ID is a simple way to solve this problem. In 2005, there was a national bipartisan commission. I mean, Jimmy Carter and James Baker, the left and the right, and they worked this out, and they agreed on a very rational, fair system for free and clean elections. And it's focused on photo ID. There are now over 100 countries and other states that are using this process, and it works, and it saves money, and it actually increases voter turnout. It does everything that you want, and it gives people the confidence that their vote is not going to be stolen by someone who's vouched in. And that's what we need. We need photo ID.
And thanks to Minnesota Majority and a couple other organizations around the country, we have the proof that it does. Photo ID does increase voter turnout. It does prevent election fraud. So when you talk about the election fraud that's happening in the state of Minnesota, and you have Secretary of State Mark Ritchie saying, oh, it's not my fault that we're not investigating the fraud, it belongs to the county attorneys, would the Attorney General be able to do something about that?
Well, the Attorney General actually is the person responsible for that. It's astonishing that people in the state of Minnesota don't understand this. I mean, the Secretary of State sets up the forums and the systems and tries to make it run properly, but if someone's violating the law, if ACORN is systematically going over and doing voter fraud throughout the state, that's the Attorney General's job. If the county attorneys are not investigating properly, that's the Attorney General's job to make sure that they do that. And
where is our Attorney General?
Well, she's
nowhere to be found.
I haven't really found them doing much in the way of investigation, but given the A+ rating with ACORN and giving the funneling of almost $250,000 of our taxpayer money to ACORN, this is very troubling, and it needs to be investigated. These questions need to be answered in a public forum and probably under oath at some time. Why did this happen? Where did this money go? How was it used?